What is up, everybody? I am Jean, aka the Game Noob, and recently it was announced that Nintendo would be releasing a Super Nintendo Classic Edition. It sounds amazing. Unlike its predecessor, which had only one controller, 30 games, and cost only $60, this new retro gaming console will have 21 games and cost $80, which personally I'm fine with, since it will come with two controllers, and the fact that one of those games is the never before released Star Fox 2. That, on top of the fact that the $80 price tag still seems much less than it's worth, it sounds like something that I will totally be looking out for come September 29th. However, having personally bought the NES Classic Edition, I've concluded that there are 3 additional things that I would like to see improved from the NES to the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. The first 2 issues I had with the NES Classic Edition both stemmed in part from its controller. So, concern number 1, the controller should have a longer cord. The NES controller only had a cord of about 3 feet, and tell me, who in their right mind wants to sit 3 feet away from their television in order to play video games? I mean, hell, my television is longer than 3 feet long. I don't want to play games less than the television's length away from my television. This seems like the simplest fix that Nintendo could make, which is why it's number 1 on this list. Number 2, create some sort of shortcut to the home menu. Once you turned on the NES Classic Edition, it took you to a home menu that allowed you to choose any of the 30 games on it to play, and also allows you to make up to 4 very simple save states for each of your games. The only problem was that when you were playing a game and when you go back to the home menu, you had to physically get up, walk up to the console, and press the reset button to return you to the home menu. As far as I can tell, the only way around this was to use a different controller, like the Wii Classic controller, which had a designated home button that will work exactly the same way. But honestly, I find it takes some of the fun out of playing NES games without an NES controller, so I wish they could incorporate some way of getting to the home menu with just the controller. This controller. I have way too much shit. I'm gonna try to show you. I have 2 ideas on how they could do this. First, they could actually add a home button to the controller. However, I'm against this because I feel like it would ruin the feel and the look of the old school Super Nintendo controller. So, secondly, they could install a method of using button combinations to take you to the home menu. For example, I own a Retron 5, which, until I got the NES Classic Edition, was the main way I would play NES games, though I don't physically own copies of the good ones. But the Retron 5 has it built in that if I press the start and the down buttons at the same time, it will let me exit the game. It could also be like how in the DES Pokemon games you can delete your save file by pressing the up, B, and select buttons all at the same time. This also feels like a very simple addition they can make to the system, but I have no knowledge in software developing or coding, so I can't say for sure. Number 3, make it so people can actually buy the damn thing. Nintendo, go fuck yourselves. I don't like to cuss and I don't usually do it, but trying to find myself one of these NES Classic Editions was one of the most frustrating and mentally damaging things I've ever done. And I don't think many people will understand exactly what I mean by that. My entire life I have been a huge fan of Nintendo, from the first time I watched my uncle teach me what speedrunning was with Super Mario Bros. To being blown away by Duck Hunt being like all those arcade games I saw at the mall, to when I first opened my first Game Boy and played the first video game I ever owned, Pokemon Yellow. And one of the reasons why I love Nintendo is because they always seem to respect and care about their fans. I mean, what kind of company tells you to take a break from their own game? The only answer I could come up with is one who cares about their customers' health and well-being. So why was it so difficult for me to get this thing?
These guys are looking for a
NES Classic Edition.
yes.
NES Classic Edition.
These 2 are looking for a
NES Classic Edition.
Shut up, man.
Now, what's so funny?
I mean, if it takes me waiting in only 3 lines, hours before a store opens for me to finally get the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, it would be a huge improvement over the 10 lines I had to wait in before finally giving up to try to get this. And I know what you're thinking, Newb. If you gave up trying to get the NES Classic Edition, how is it that you have one? The reason why I have this is because my father, who saw that I was trying really hard to get one, decided to help me out by finding out that a GameStop was going to get 2 of them. And when I mean 2, I don't mean 2 cases of them, I mean like 2 total. So he went out and stood outside of that GameStop hours before it opened just to learn that their management decided to sell them the day before, making the GameStop employee who had to tell him that feel so guilty that when another one came into the store, the GameStop employee used his own money to buy this so that he could give it to Dad, and my dad gave it to me as a Christmas gift. Now, any Nintendo fan knows that Nintendo has problems keeping up with demand with their new releases. It isn't anything new. However, for the supply problem to be that outrageously bad, not only for something that had been out for over a month and a half by that point, but for something the company knows is going to stop being produced after a short time, Nintendo should, in my opinion, be ashamed. This isn't a limited edition Zelda 3DS, which if you miss out means that you miss out on a cool design on something that you can already buy without it. And it's not like the Nintendo Switch, which is difficult to get but will still be in production over the next couple of foreseeable years. This is something that in its entirety will come and go in just a few short months, and if any loyal Nintendo fan that wants it isn't able to get it, Nintendo should be ashamed. The NES Classic Edition didn't have pre-orders or reservations, and when I talked to store employees about it, they would mention how they would only get in 2 or 3 a month, and how it was practically impossible even for them to figure out when they would get more. That GameStop employee, who will forever remain nameless because he could have gotten fired for this, is practically a godsend just for giving this to me. And if the Super Nintendo's Classic Edition's release is handled like the shit show that the NES Classic Edition release was, I will say one more time for emphasis for the Japanese company who should know what shame is. Nintendo should be ashamed. A not so simple way for this to be improved, but something that I feel should definitely be considered, is for there to actually be pre-orders for the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. Currently, there are no sites showing potential pre-orders, which worries me, but we still have some time before its release, so hopefully that will change. The second option I have in my mind, which is in no way easy for Nintendo, but would make it easier for us buyers, would be to allow us to buy it directly from Nintendo's site. That way, even if there are production issues preventing people from getting one, it would create a sort of backlog waiting list, making sure that whoever wants one can get one. Even if they add a $20 shipping and handling fee, I would totally be willing to pay for it just for the knowledge that I would in fact get one without having to spend $300 to $500 for one on eBay. And I feel like it wouldn't hurt Nintendo that much to allow direct shipping to us, since they would keep more of the money made from each console, since they don't have to share part of that $80 with whatever store is doing the selling. I know that I went on a little rant there on that last point, but what do you think about it? Am I right to be pissed at Nintendo for their constant shortages? Or is there anything else you would like to see change from the NES Classic Edition to the Super Nintendo Classic Edition? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Future Nostalgia Gaming to see more videos on game news, as well as future Let's Plays and game reviews that are coming down the pipeline. I will see you all later here at the FNG Network. Sign off. Goodbye.